Tonight we put the focus on Himachal Pradesh and other hill states, those in the Himalayas, where we've seen repeated flash floods and landslides take place. Maybe too many this time, something that only data can tell us. But what has happened today, this afternoon, has already left 10 people dead. Many more have been rescued, who were found in a very bad injured state. 13 people, in fact, have been rescued so far. This landslide took place in Kinnaur. And at that point of time, initially we were told that there were fears that 40 to 50 people may have been buried under that debris. Now, before we move on and have a larger conversation, let's get you the latest update on this. And so a spokesperson of the ITBP, Mr. Vivek Pandey, is joining me with more details on this. These are the visuals that we've got for you. Mr. Pandey, thank you so much for speaking to us. In fact, what we do know that, several people have been pulled out. ITBP has even released a list of the injured who've been rescued by the teams that have been deployed there. But what we want to understand is an overall sense of, the ground reality. The visual itself has left all of us shocked. And we are extremely concerned. Multiple vehicles, buses and trucks were also stuck there, and on the other side we do know that people are stranded as well, because obviously this has blocked off one entire path. Not the first landslide has taken place. The last few days in various valleys of Himachal and Uttarakhand, we've seen people getting trapped, we've seen casualties, injuries, vehicles being damaged, homes being destroyed because of landslide. We'll go across to Vivek Pandey in just a bit as we get through him. But let me also tell you what it is that I intend to focus on tonight. This disaster has yet again raised several questions, whether what is happening in Himachal and Uttarakhand is now increasing in frequency. Yes, this is a landslide prone area. Many parts of Himalayas are and have historically been considered as landslide prone. But when more and more tourist towns begin to bear the brunt of it and a higher frequency, then one wonders what's going on. Between June 13th and July 30th, 35 major incidents have taken place. In August 2021, the number of incidents that have taken place are actually twice what we saw in the entire 2020. So effectively, a 116% rise in landslides, 121% rise in cloudburst. This is as per data put out by Hindustan Times. Now, I want to understand what's going on and how quickly are we headed towards an ecological disaster that will leave us completely in ruins. And joining me on that conversation tonight will also be panelist Dr. Surya Prakash, head for Geomet Risk Management Division in NIDM, Dr. Harish Chandra Nerwal, glaciologist at the Hemwati Nandan Bahuguna, the Garhwal University, joining me this evening as well. Dr. Roxy Matthew Cole, climate scientist at the Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology. Dr. Sudhir Krishna, former Secretary for Urban Development with the Government of India, also joining me this evening. And let me go across to Dr. Roxy Matthew Cole, because Dr. Roxy, just a couple of days ago, there was also an IPCC report that came about on climate change and really spelled disaster, very end of the world kind of descriptions in that report itself. What we are seeing, is it connected? Is it really a sign of what's to come similarly?
Thank you, Tanvi, for carrying this important discussion on prime time on Mirror Now. In fact, I was part of the recent IPCC report as a contributor, and what the report clearly says is that some of the changes that are happening across the globe due to human-induced carbon emissions, the climate change, are irreversible, meaning that this will stay for centuries to come, if not thousands of years. And in that respect, India is at a particular juncture because of its geographical location. we have on all three sides the Indian Ocean, which is a tropical ocean, which is warming at a very fast rate. And on the north, we have the Himalayas, which is also changing. Now, until now, we thought this was our forte. Our borders were safe because of the Himalayas and the Indian Ocean. But if you look at the north, the Himalayas are changing, especially we see that across most of the regions, glaciers are retreating, snowfall is reducing, but rainfall is increasing. So the prevalence of glacial lakes are also more. But many times we are content with blaming climate change in India. Many times the landslides that you were talking about just now are also a result of climate change interacting with direct human interactions over the land. The land use changes as well. And also Himalaya, it's a geologically active region. So there are multiple factors leading into what we are seeing over the Himalayas. But if you look at the essence from the climate change, we are looking forward to multiple extreme weather events across India in terms of cyclones, heavy rainfall events, landslides, and also sea level rise. And sometimes many of these events can work together. And there is heat waves as well.
Okay, so there is definitely the heat wave, landslides, flash floods that then further lead to other kinds of disaster, glaciers melting or glacial lakes now, moving downwards, which is also leading to several of the disasters that we've seen in the recent past. Now, one aspect is climate change, however, with an overarching, damage that we're doing to this earth that is leading to this climate change. The other aspect is also the way in each of these places, Dr. Harish Chandra, in each of these places we are constructing, we are building, we are using it as personal property to develop more and more. And some of the reports that I read today were really scary, that regulations in these hill areas is the same across the board. It doesn't even match with the topography or what the specific conditions there may be. So how big is that as a factor?
Thank you. So actually, with previous speaker told about something about the climate change and its, you can say, effect on the not only the Himalaya but also the total subcontinent. But to take the case of the Himalaya, we have to understand Himalaya is one of the youngest mountains of the world, and still it is rising. However, you can say the rate is around 5 millimeter per year, in which it is subducting to the Tibetan plate. So it means under this global warming, you can say, scenario, there is one of the factors that Himalaya is very, very active on, and a lot of seismicity, lot of, you can say, extreme events like, you can say, heavy precipitation and cloud bursts, they all are going in the Himalayan terrain. Okay? Now, if you concentrate about this particular Kinnaur landslide, it is basically a rockfall, basically. And this rockfall, rather later on, it has the combined effect, and it may be the debris, and likewise this one. So now the road construction, normally, if you see some of the road in the, you can say, Himachal, one of the road, which is from the Nahan to Simla, it is on the top of the range. And most of the roads of the Himalayan terrain, they are along the valleys. And if you see these particular landslides, that particular route, the dip of the, you can say, rock is towards the road, which is one of the dangerous points for the landslide activity. So not only in the, I'm not sure about whether the road widening, you can say, work was going on there, like it is going on in the in our area, in the Garhwal Himalaya. And it is also causing a lot of the landslides all over in these road sections. So if you see about this particular landslide activity, so the lithological and structural condition of the rock is one of the very important parameters. Most of the rock in the Himalayan terrain, and particularly the higher Himalayan terrain, which is also known as the central Himalayan terrain, they are highly fractured and they are highly crushed. They have a number of shear zones which have a very low bearing strength of the rock. And the rainfall and the melt seismicity. There are so many, you can say, seismic tremors. They are occurring in the Himalayan terrain, and thus they are the joint planes which are already available in the rock. And that are leading to a lot of variety of the landslide and other type of the mass movement in this area.
Okay, so thank you for actually elaborating on some of these reasons as well that we must keep in mind that's leading to some of the disasters. In fact, in Lahaul Spiti, there have been 13 landslides, 11 flash floods in the recent times itself. And this experts say, despite being the fact that it was considered as a cold desert, and this is supposed to be an unusual occurrence. The other part, Mandi and Shimla, reported 4 major landslides. 3 were reported in Kullu, 2 each in Chamba, Kinnaur, Solan. 2 flash floods were reported in Chamba, Kullu and Kangra as well, where people have died. 10 people died, 5 others were injured in the landslide that took place in Kangra just last month. 10 people died in a flash flood in Lahaul Spiti as well as Tozing Nala. And this continues. Now, while this is happening in other parts of the country as well, Kerala, Maharashtra, so, on the Western Ghat side. But tonight I wanted to speak specifically about the Himalayas and the hill states of Uttarakhand and Himachal and the dangers they stare at. Dr. Surya Prakash, help us understand what exactly are we dealing with. Dr. Prakash, I think you're on mute. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Sorry.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. As you have shown through your data that landslides, particularly the catastrophic landslides, which are engulfing human lives, they are on the increased side because we are actually occupying the susceptible slopes which are prone to landslide hazards because of their geology, poor lithology, adverse drainage condition, or the deforestation, mining, construction activities, etc., where anthropogenic interventions have actually led to the increased degree of instabilities amongst the slopes. That is one thing. Other is that there are natural processes which are always working upon these slopes, and they are also acting. For example, the rock types, they have always been there. The shear zones, the tectonic structures like fold, fault and thrust, which have been there in those areas since these rocks have come up in the Himalayan region. But our main role as a disaster management is, where do the human activities, they are leading to aggravation of these problems. The landslides are natural processes, they are hazards, but when we come across or intersect our own human activities in terms of construction and development, then they turn into disasters. This example I can cite even from Maharashtra, that Malin landslide in Pune, recently Rayagad landslides in Maharashtra. There was landslides in Kerala in 2018 in Idukki district. So many areas of our country, they have been adversely affected. But if we talk about particularly the Himalayan region, climate change parameter is also one of the driving factors. That is also making a difference. The best examples are Leh, you have quoted, which happened from 3rd to 5th of August 2009. Another incident I can cite, the recent event which happened on the morning of 7th February 2021, on the Sunday morning, which was an unexpected, unusual and uncertain event. So these kind of events, now we have to actually envisage and do our work more on these aspects. Okay. That where are those unstable slopes and how do they act in terms of our climate change conditions as well as the developmental implementation.
Okay.
So these are in short.
Yes, very interesting that you made that point. And in fact, I do want to talk a lot more about what the experts, what scientists and researchers would actually tell us about what's happening in each of these zones and what could come next. And just how closely linked is that to the policies that our governments make, or the development work that we allow to happen, or the tourist destinations that we create? Because I find the two are highly disconnected. But before I go across to Dr. Sudhir Krishna on that, Vivek Pandey is through with us. Vivek Pandey, spokesperson for the ITBP. Thank you so much for giving us your time, Mr. Pandey. Can you give us a sense of the extent of the rescue operations currently taking place in Kinnaur?
Now we are focusing on the missing bus. It was told by the driver of the bus who was rescued from the site that that bus was standing well in the middle of the landslide zone. When he rushed to the safer location, and some more than 25 people were in the bus when the bus was hit by the rubble. And when we went through the entire rubble on the road, it seemed that there was bus inside it. But when we cleared the debris, it was found that only some panels of the bus was there, and the bus is now we feel that have fell down into the river or maybe on the slope. Right now, two of our teams searching for the bus on the riverbed, the Satluj River, and there are no traces till 9 o'clock. About 9 o'clock, I have spoken to my field commanders over there. So those teams have been looking for that bus. 14 people have been rescued, and 10 dead bodies, very badly, hit by the rubble, have been recovered from the site, retrieved from the site, and they have been sent to the local hospital. Right now, we are running our operations, and we hope that we will be running it throughout the night. We do have our equipments placed, and some 300 men of the Indo-Tibetan Border Police, along with the NDRF and the SDRF and some other agencies, are on the job.
Okay, the people who have been injured or who are still missing, are they large? Do we have details if they are tourists or they are largely locals who got stranded there?
Yeah, they are largely locals because they were plying on that particular road. Some of them must be plying on daily basis. There was a sumo, there was some cars, and the bus was also local, it is told. In fact, that was going to Haridwar from Murang. So there may be a likelihood that some of the people may be from some other states also, though the list of that particular bus passengers are not with us, nor with the district administration. But the rescued people and the dead people, whatever list the police has identified, it seems that mostly 90%, more than 90% of them are from the local vicinity.
Okay, Mr. Pandey, any challenges that you are facing right now, your team's facing right now on ground, or factors that you anticipate could become a hurdle in this operation?
Initially, there was a lot of hurdle because the landslide was happening and shooting stones were disturbing the movement of the troops. But later on, after 3 o'clock, the shooting stones stopped, and right now there was no such problem with us. There was rain also at around 3 o'clock afternoon. We are only troubled by the darkness right now due to the fact that the slope is very, very difficult to move around. And in the midst of darkness, it's very difficult for us to move safely to the area. And another, worry is that, whenever there is a landslide, there are chances that another landslide may occur. You never know on the upper hill or anywhere. There may be some stones or some other thing which can actually start another some sort of a rubble push towards the downer slopes. So right now we are worried about that also. Though we have placed our guides on the upper reaches, they are warning us in just in case there is any such sort of new start or fresh start of any landslide. But right now the midst of darkness is a very, very difficult thing to actually cope with for our troops. Though they have torches, dragon lights, and some sort of equipment which are workable during the nights also. But the speed of the rescue operation has been slowed down due to the night.
Surely, but thank you so much for joining us, and I hope that you're able to, go through the entire debris and rubble quickly and come back to us with more updates. Thank you, Vivek Pandey, for speaking with us. Well, let's get back to our larger conversation, and our guests continue to be with us. Dr. Sudhir Krishna, thank you for joining me. The point that I was making before we started this conversation, the planning, the policy making, and the development, how much of that is actually in sync with the ecological and environmental factors that we must think about?
There are a series of policies and programs that are in position and to tackle both the aspects, the aspect of prevention of the catastrophe and mitigation of the damage once catastrophe has happened. As we discussed from the earlier speakers, that the landslide is occurring on account of variety of factors, which are partly natural phenomena by way of climate change, and like we have sudden cloudbursts, more cloudbursts these days in the recent time than before, heavy rainfall in a short time, and coupled with some earth tremors also are increasing in number, it is reported. That is on one side. On the other side, we are having a lot of human development activities. Roads are being widened. And when the road widening is taking place, then there are procedures that the embankment should be strengthened. But then how much of embankment can be strengthened, because the landslide comes from much farther up. So there is a whole lot of bigger activity required, for which we have got two major frameworks. One is the National Action Plan for Climate Change. Under that, we have a National Mission for Sustainable Himalayan Ecosystems. And under that, there are a series of programs designed. We have got the GSI, Geological Survey of India, has done a lot of mapping of ecologically fragile portions of the parts of the Himalayan areas. We have got the satellite imagery from National Remote Sensing Center, Indian Institute of Remote Sensing, Dehradun, and so on. With that, and we have got the planning guidelines like the URDPFI, Urban and Regional Plan Formulation and Development Implementation Guidelines are there. The Bureau of Indian Standard Guidelines are there. Indian Road Congress Guidelines are there. Now, what is really required is to put all this together for preparing an effective local plan. Local plan for a village, local plan for a town, and make systems strong enough. Strengthen the capacities of the local government, be it the panchayat, be it the municipality, to prepare a solid disaster plan, disaster prevention and mitigation plan for themselves, and integrate that plan into their own master plans. This is a challenge now. A time has come that, we have got verticals now operating in managing the disaster issues. The verticals are in the nature of National Disaster Recovery Force, NDRF, SDRF, and so on and so forth. We have also got, National Disaster Management Authority, State Authority, and so on and so forth. But the local level, strong local governance with adequate capacity, adequate knowledge, and wherewithal.
So you're saying, Dr. Sudhir Krishna, if I may, that there exists a lot of policies and rules and regulations and plans, but they are in different categories, and we need to merge them to actually implement them locally to each of the zones. But that's not happening. So then it's not helpful, really.
Yes. And in fact, we have got a system of, for example, we have a system of home guard.
Yeah.
Now, the home guard are local people to be part-time volunteers to act in case of disasters. That will be a very quick response arrangement that has to be strengthened. In this country with 6 lakh villages, we have got only 6 lakh home guards. On the average, one home guard per village. And if you really see, many will have none. So I think these are the things when the home guard arrangement, local volunteers, local panchayats, local municipalities, they have to be groomed in terms of knowledge, in terms of skills, in terms of manpower, in terms of procedures, processes. I mean, a rethink is required. The larger framework is available, but integrating all that, converging into, because the local problem is a local problem. A village suffers a landslide. Then to mobilize state disaster force, state authority, district authority, and so on, will take a lot of time and may be very costly also in terms of time and in terms of money also. So it is high time that we strengthen the local governance arrangement, for which all framework is available. But just to concentrate, just to make it converge into local level, I think it will do wonders now. People have become aware. Now connectivity is available. Wi-Fi facilities are there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it is all possible now. Only thing is a rethink is required. As I would say in a nutshell, is a bottoms-up approach.
Okay.
Not top-down, but bottoms-up approach is required now, particularly for landslide mitigation and prevention activities.
Yes, Dr. Surya Prakash wanted to come in and make a point as well. Go ahead.
Actually, I wanted to make a mention of the national guidelines for management of landslides and avalanches. They have been issued by our National Disaster Management Authority during June 2009. And again, in 2019, a national level strategy has been issued by the National Disaster Management Authority for the management of landslides particularly. What I see is that although there are district level disaster management plan, state level disaster management plan, but the thematic disaster management plans are still lacking. We need to have a local level landslide management plan. As Dr. Sudhir Krishna said, has to be bottom up approach, because the landslides are more of a local phenomena and hazard than the regional phenomena. Although they can be regional in terms of their distribution during earthquakes, which we have witnessed during Uttarkashi earthquake in 1991, Chamoli earthquake in 1999. Also, when we had the Muzaffarabad earthquake on 8th October 2005, sorry, and then Sikkim earthquake. So many events have been reported where these have happened at an instance in multiple places as well. But ultimately, what we have to address is all the causes, sources, and factors which result into landslides, so that we can live in harmony with the nature.
So,
and that's what we suggest.
Well, I think at least the experts would largely know and have known for a while what are the causes and what is the cause effect, how it's going to affect us. Where we fail, Dr. Roxy Matthew, every time is to use that knowledge into actually saving lives and saving the planet.
Exactly, Tanvi. I was happy that you noted that there is a disconnect between expert talking and then the policy, how the policy is being worked out, right? So, but before going into that, I just want to agree on what Dr. Sudhir Krishna just told. Even with respect to climate change or landslides, we need to actually work on local level, because even though climate change is global, the impacts and the challenges are local, totally dependent on how the topography of the region and how the weather works out on that region. Now, having said that, we need to keep the local administrations accountable as well. And this is because for decades, climate scientists like me have been churning out reports showing that the climate is changing, extreme weather events are increasing, and there are multiple evidences showing that in these regions like over the Himalayas, over Maharashtra, or even Kerala, like in the recent period, that landslides are occurring not only because of climate change, but also because of how humans are using the land. And this all depends on, so each land has its own topography and its nature, and landslides, when heavy rains fall on hills which do not have any more forest cover and have construction over them, these sand and soil and the hills cannot absorb these kind of rains. So all the boulders come down, and probably it goes into the rivers, the landslide and the water, everything, and flooding downstream towns. So this has been happening across the country, but this is particular for each locality. So the thing is that instead of, like you are calling us experts on these panels, we also need to call those people who are responsible for providing solutions or implementing these policies that Dr. Sudhir Krishna was talking about. We can keep on dissecting each event, event after event, for decades.
Yeah.
But what is the solution? We need to bring them in these panels and make them talk. You need to ask them the same questions.
Well, I'll tell you what, Dr. Roxy, we did try. We tried the two leading national political parties who've, alternately been in power in these hill states as well. Okay. Neither of the parties wanted to be part of this conversation. That's actually also a part of the reality.
Yeah. So we need to discuss this with local, local and state level and national level administrators and governments, and they need to work upon these policies so that we can adapt and mitigate to these changes that we are seeing, and which is not going down. In fact, these changes are going to intensify and increase further into the future.
Well, Dr. Nainwal, since you've been on the expert committee that's also advised the states governments in the past, do share your experience with us.
Yeah, just I would like to share something here. So if we'll talk about the Himalayas, I am from the Himalayan terrain. So basically Himalaya is divided into four parts basically. One is the Shivalik, then we have the Lesser Himalaya, then we have the Central Himalaya, and then you have the Tibetan Himalaya. So when you are talking about the construction of the road, I am concentrating only for the road construction here. So most of the construction of the road is very, very unscientific.
Exactly.
Okay? But there, you can say widening is also very, very unscientific. So that is one of the very important cause, you can say one of the sole cause for the landslide and particularly the rockfall, which is going in the several places in the Himachal Pradesh as well as in the Uttarakhand. The second cause, which the Dr. Matthew was also highlighted that one, that was the climate change. As I am working in the Himalayan glaciers, basically, if you see the glacier retreat, their rate to going to upward. If you say the data from 1962 to 1990, it was 5 to 20 meter per year, basically. But if you say about the data after that one, up to 2005, so 1990, 2005, they are retreating average more than 30 or 35 meter per year. So that is one of the response of the climate. What is going to change in the climate, and that is leading is not only the landslide, but several type of other type of the events also. So in particular, our area, a lot of the cloudburst, lot of the landslides, they are aggravated and they are going to be more and more each year. So the first thing is what have to do now? Okay, the first thing is that whenever we are constructing a road, there should be a scientific knowledge. Mostly the road are constructed in the fossil landslides area also. And these fossil landslides area, particularly, they are one of the leading point to the toe erosion. And once the toe of the slope is going to be removed, the slope is going to be, you can say, downward, and it is leading from the rockfall or topple or any type of, you can say, landslides. So these are some of the issues. Actually, we are in the, you can say, era of the global warming. So there will be definitely there will be the climate change. There will be intense, you can say, extreme events. And we have to live with these events now. But what we have to do our construction work with a lot of the scientific knowledge. That is the only thing which we have to take into consideration. And we have to say about to the, you can say, this thing to our policy planner as well as the manager.
Yes, well, actually, you raised a very interesting example, Dr. Sudhir Krishna, to scientifically construct these roads, not to list just a bunch of rules and regulations and then go ahead and simply give out the tender to some contractor who will any which ways end up doing what he feels like doing to cut corners and construct that road.
No, actually, it is not like that exactly, because there are Indian Road Congress specifications for hill roads. And those specifications have made provision for proper embankment also to be, prepared or developed along with the carriageway, and also for the rainwater to flow properly. All that is there. But the point is that has to be seen in locality wise, because each locality, each point has got its own challenge. As I had said earlier, that embankment, suppose they make 20 feet of embankment now, but the debris may come from another 100 feet up further. You can't have embankment all the way up to 100 feet or 200 feet, So therefore, along with the embankment by way of putting boulders or by way of retaining wall, one has to develop greenery also. And because the soils are very loose. The Himalayan soils, unlike the Deccan Plateau, Himalayan soil is very loose. And the moment vegetation is removed, the soil becomes prone to, sliding down, particularly when the heavy rains are there. And now the cropping pattern is also changing. People are using more irrigated crops with more water. So the soil becomes further, loose in terms of, and agriculture is becoming more intense. So along with it is not merely the road design, it is a planning which is more important. And the planning should take care of regional planning. Regional planning is most crucial for handling this. We have to worry more about planning. First of all, I would say the foremost is good planning, and the planning has to be in different layers of planning. Very, very large level of watershed, and then going into sub-watershed level planning, and so on and so forth, so that we know that how and from what part the landslide will flow and what direction it will go. And then the local area plan, as I said, the village plan is required for implementing it, because approvals are given should be given. Sometimes many approval authorities are given to state authorities,
Right.
It is not that Panchayat gives approval for everything. But a state authority can minutely know about each locality, each point, each kilometer, what is required in terms of verticals and in terms of, latitude, longitude. Is very difficult. So it is high time, and technology is available. As I said, the satellite imagery maps are available at low cost with high precision. In terms of our own Bhuvan maps are there, Google maps are there. I mean, the variety of maps are there. But only thing is the local authorities have to be equipped, facilitated, capacity has to be improved, and a little bit of patience is also required. In 2 years' time, probably excellent plans can be prepared for each local area. And
Well,
one more thing,
yes.
lastly, I would say that as things are happening, human development is now spreading to all along the roadside.
Yeah.
Now, in olden times, there were pockets of habitation, and there would be some stretch of a kilometer or 2 or 4 or 5 of, just like only green and so on. Now, almost throughout the road development is taking place, because the planning has not kept pace with the nature changes in the climate and the changes in the human requirement. So
Yeah, actually, largely the planning hasn't kept pace with the desires and the requirements of the human population, and that seems to be the biggest problem. I actually want to talk about this as well, Dr. Surya Prakash. Like we've pointed out, there are many factors to it, at least in the Himalayas, why there are more and more landslides taking place. But if that be the reason, and we know a lot of it is also to do with the fact that there are younger mountains which are still moving in that sense, then why are we allowing this kind of development or newer setups, newer habitations, or even projects, hydel projects? Then the way we've gone about making these hydel projects, at some point it will become a challenge.
Tanvi, actually, if you talk in the terms of our awareness, information, knowledge related to landslides, it's a very well known phenomena since times the people have been living in the hills by their traditional knowledge, indigenous knowledge, and scientific knowledge. But the conflict is that we are not conscious to our efforts. As Dr. Sudhir Krishnaji said, there may be good plans, but these plans are not implemented by those responsible agencies directly. They are subletting it to the contractors who are not experts in these areas, and they implement those projects in a manner that actually become harmful for the mankind, human beings. So therefore, we must see. For example, I cite you some examples, not only in terms of roads, even buildings. I got a chance to work for Dharamshala area, where I saw a lot of landslides were happening, and this is one of the places which received one of the highest rainfall in the country. And when we analyzed, it was not the rain which was the main culprit for the occurrence of those landslides. It was the habitation, human habitation, which was surcharging the slopes and increasing the pore water pressures, resulting to destabilization and ultimately landslides. And the ratio of water infiltrating into those slopes from the domestic discharges was almost 10 to 15 times what the natural rain was infiltrating into those slopes. So just imagine the role of man, human beings in this. So we have to look into this, that we may have all the worthy knowledge and information or intellectuals till it is not well practiced, it is not turned into wisdom and best practices, will not be able to reap the benefits of all these information, policies, plans, guidelines, despite all our endeavors in terms of
Ye-
in these
Yes,
discussions.
in fact, we actually did read, some part of what the NIDM itself has put out, saying how landslides are preventable provided prescribed procedures are followed. And exactly what you said right now, Dr. Surya Prakash, that the contractors are often in such a hurry to finish the project in their own limited budgets that they don't bother getting those specialized people which are needed. That's, like I said in the beginning, and I want to just address this before we wrap up, it's not just the Himalayas, it's in other parts of our country or the world itself. Dr. Roxy, for example, much conversation has happened about Kerala and the kind of floods, devastation and landslides that Kerala has seen in the last few years. And along the Western Ghats, I think I get, every time I step out of Mumbai to travel by road, I am appalled at the way the mountains are just vanishing. They're literally being chopped, cut off, and the rocks and the muds is just being taken away. And now we are staring at landslides. The last landslide in Raigad claimed over 50 lives. So it's the same problem. We know the challenge is we're just not doing anything to stop it.
Yeah, yeah. And I have an interesting story connecting Himalayas to rest of India, actually. There was a recent research which showed that you were talking about population as well, right? So, and somebody else was talking about agriculture. So a lot of population from the agriculturally intensive regions of northern India, from the foothills of Himalayas, because of the changes over there, because their agriculture is badly affected and all, they are migrating domestically. And about 30 to 40% of the domestic migration this way happens from the Himalayan foothills to other cities of India, where they are facing new challenges. And most of these people, a large share is found to go to Mumbai, another coastal city, which is facing huge amount of challenges in terms of, recently we saw back-to-back cyclones in 2020 and 2021, Nisarga and Tokte, extremely severe cyclones. And we are also seeing they're migrating to other areas where floods are increasing. In fact, our research shows that there is a threefold rise in extreme rainfall events, widespread extreme rainfall events causing floods across India. And so we urgently need to work to, one of the panelists told that over some regions over the Himachal Pradesh, there is local risk assessment and all, but we don't have that kind of risk assessment across the country. We need to disaster-proof each and every district across the country because the challenges are totally local. So some regions might have landslides, but some regions have storm surges because of cyclones, huge amount of water being pushed in because of the cyclones, the coastal cities. And this might interact with the landslides also, like you were talking about the example of Kerala, right? So Kerala has highlands and where landslides occur frequently because of human intervention and heavy rains. And this water comes downstreams to the coastal areas. But now the sea level is rising. And if there are heavy rains and cyclones also, a lot of water is pushed inside. So this water which are coming through the rivers do not get flushed out easily. And if it is over a high tide time, it takes several hours for this water to get flushed out. So huge regions across the state can get flooded. And we saw this happening over the east coast of India also during cyclone. Yes, we thought Bengal is usually seeing many cyclones every year, so the east coast is disaster-proof. But that is not what happened with a moderate cyclone like Cyclone Yas. Huge amounts of water, saline water, salt water was pushed inland, several kilometers inland, devastating agriculture across the region. So we need to understand, because these challenges like on the east coast or the west coast or the Himalayas and each region, rural regions in Maharashtra, the challenges are totally different. And district-wise, we need to map their risk and disaster proof, whether it is your own house or whether it's a farm or whether it is public infrastructure, whether it's expressway, coastal expressway along Mumbai side, or roads like you people were talking on the Himalayan regions. We need to assess the risk for each region and do the construction. We need to have sustainable development along with natural defenses. So that also will be totally different in different regions.
Well, thank you so much for putting that in perspective, and I am completely out of time, but it's been a pleasure to have all four of you experts joining me on this conversation. You know, our research team was actually looking at and putting together all of the reasons to explain what happened in Kinnaur today and why it has become more and more landslide prone, and we are witnessing these kind of disastrous landslides. And they put together multiple reasons. One that I mentioned, the entire Satluj basin has about 143 hydel projects. That is bound to have an impact on the balance of nature there. Natural disasters will be inevitable. Reckless environmental destruction. Kinnaur is already a disaster-prone area. And still we are seeing more and more construction activity take place there, to the point that we've now begun to see the impact on the nature. Streams, natural streams are getting blocked, and that's become a big problem. Geological experts believe natural courses of the streams, a few of which are flowing underbelly and inside the mountains, are either getting blocked or diverted, resulting in landslides, rock slips, and downhill movement of boulders. And if you see the recent set of videos that have emerged, that's what it's largely been. Now, we are not learning our lesson. After the disastrous floods of Uttarakhand in 2013, multiple reports, government reports have come out talking about the distressing impact of hydropower projects in that entire area. Nothing has happened. Reports are all there. Guidelines are all there. Rules are all there. But who's implementing any of it? Who's course correcting? Who is looking at the kind of development, construction, habitation that's actually growing in our hill areas? If we value them so much as even tourist spots, as such great, beautiful landscapes, if we're so proud of our Himalayas, we have to ensure that we're able to preserve them. We have to ensure that we're able to preserve life in the Himalayas. It's not just about whether 10 people or 50 people die every year, and if you think that's a small number or a big number. Imagine the impact, loss of life, destruction of the entire place, destruction of homes, villages, impact in the economy and on nature itself. How many more landslides, flash floods will it take for us to wake up and realize we're going horribly wrong with the way we are handling the hill states? Thank you for joining us.